What if I told you that you are a leader and the person right beside you is too? Sometimes that's a difficult concept to grasp. Maybe you don't view yourself as a leader, or maybe you don't view the one beside you as a leader. In today's episode, I want to tell you why and give you some application and challenges to understand that you are a leader. Well, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Brian Wood Leadership Podcast, where we give you the confidence to lead well. And this is episode number 1. Man, I'm so excited that you are joining us, that you are listening, maybe watching. And I am just honored, truly, that you would take the time to listen to this. I want to share a couple things with you before we dive into the content for today. My ask of you would be that you would comment, subscribe, give us a review if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, man. We're a brand new podcast and we want to get some exposure. And so if you find this content valuable, please do so and then share it with others. It would mean so much to me if you would do that. The second thing is just to tell you the flow and what you can expect here on this podcast. Again, I want to give you principles in leadership. No matter where you are, no matter what environment, no matter what context, no matter what position, I believe that you can find value. And we're going to release that on the first and third Monday of every month. It's going to be anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes long. If I have a guest on, it may be a little bit longer. But we want to keep it short. We want to keep it practical, and we want to give you something to chew on and be challenged with in each episode. And so I'm excited. Today, we're releasing 2 episodes in one, not necessarily in the same audio and video. You're going to have to go over to the next episode, but we are releasing episode 1 and 2 on launch day. And I am just super excited to be able to do that. And again, thank you for joining. So let's jump in. You are a leader. Man, have you ever thought about that? For some of you, you're like, yeah, I am. Absolutely. I love that statement and you're right. And for others, maybe you're pushing back a little bit like, I'm not so sure. And I think there's 2 different views. One is, I don't think I'm a leader because I'm just not a leader. And you look at yourself inwardly and introspectively, and when you say, man, there's no way I'm a leader. That's not my style. That's not my gifting. That's not my wiring, my personality. But you are. And on the flip side, there are others who are like, bro, there's no way. Like, I promise you that person over there is not a leader. And I think that we push back on that statement, on that thought, because we have this, we have the perspective of leadership off just a little bit. Now, granted, I understand there are levels of leadership, and there are some who are more gifted and are more talented and are way better leaders than I ever will be. I'm not negating that. But it doesn't mean that because someone is the best leader in the world, that someone else isn't a leader. And so I want you to understand why I can say that statement. And here's what I know, and here's what you know, or at least are about to know. Leadership is influence. Leadership is influence at its core. That's the most simple and basic definition. Obviously, I didn't make that up, nothing new under the sun, but that's exactly what leadership is. And I can say and look into a camera and speak into a microphone with confidence and standing on the statement of you are a leader because every single person at the sound of my voice has influence. Again, that influence may be larger or smaller, may be on a different scale, but we all have influence over someone or something. Think about that for a moment. If you're married, you have influence in the life of your spouse. If you have kids, you have influence into their life. If you play on a sports team, young people, you have influence. You have influence in your classrooms. You have influence, adults, in your workplaces and young people. You have influence in your neighborhood. You have influence in your workplaces, especially if you're an organizational leader. Like, we all have influence, whether it's 2 or 2,000, we all have influence. Therefore, you are a leader. And so you say, why does that matter? Why are you wasting time, if you will? I hope you're not thinking that, but Why would you spend the first episode telling us that we are leaders in a leadership podcast? And what am I supposed to do with that statement, that thought process? And I want to give you three things today that I think will help you no matter where you are, whether you view yourself as a leader, whether you think that, you are a leader, but others aren't. Like, no matter what, I want to just challenge you to really take inventory on a few things and apply these to your life right now and begin to view yourself as a leader. And these three things will help you do so. All right, you ready? Let's dive in. Number one, start where you are. Start where you are. So much of leadership in the American culture is so it's so adamant and the mindset that leadership is a position and or a title. And it's not. And what happens is that we get this mindset that when I get to this, when I get this promotion, when I get this job, when this happens, when I get a direct report, on and on and on, then I will be a leader. No. Start right where you are. You're a leader now, because I can assure you, side note here, you're going to get to that place that you want to get to, and you're just going to be looking ahead and saying, if I can get to this place, and it's an endless cycle. So start right where you are. I'm a very personal and transparent type of guy, and you'll hear this and feel this and see this on this podcast. And I'll just tell you straight up right now, from the very beginning, I really did not want to launch this podcast. Woo! Aren't you excited to be listening? Like, all right, I'm turning it off now. Please don't. Stay with me. I just want to be transparent. As I think about and talk about starting where you are, oftentimes we don't want to do that because of all of these other factors. And so with this leadership podcast, obviously there are other areas that I started at and needed to start at and continue to start at. But this was one that kept weighing on my heart that I felt like I was supposed to do. But there were so many emotions that were flooding my mind. What if they don't listen? What if what if I make bad content? I'm worried. I'm fearful. I'm anxious. Who am I? Like, how can I be speaking into leaders? What do I have to show? The list goes on, and I know it was all from the enemy. And so I just had to put my foot down and say, look, I'm going to do this. I'm going to launch this thing. I'm going to start right where I am. I'm going to do my part, and I'm going to let God do his. And so start right where you are. So often we want to reach this position, and we need to stop doing that, because here's what happens. When we start where we are, even if we don't have it all together, even if we don't figure it out, what's going to happen is that you're going to make mistakes. And now some of you are like, well, bro, I'm not starting because I don't like mistakes. No. Listen, mistakes are what shape you. You need to step into things. You need to be a friend of failure. And because you'll never be able to reach your potential without stepping into things, starting where you are and allowing the Lord to guide you and lead you. Now, if you're listening and you're not a Christian, listen, I'm going to be speaking a lot from the foundation of Christianity. But you take that principle however you want it. Like, just start right where you are and allow things to happen and figure things out. Because here's what I want you to know. Pushing forward will excel you further and faster than sitting still. Pushing forward will excel you further and faster than sitting still. Start where you are. When you begin to push forward and you begin to excel and grow, you're going to understand how much of a leader you really are. And so do that. Don't sit back. Start right where you are, because you are a leader. Number 2, influence your influence. You're like, what does that even mean? Influence your influence. Listen, when you think about influence in the people that are around you and the people in your life, there's like 2 categories. The first category is that you have influence over someone's life, right? Maybe, again, as we talked about at the beginning, maybe it's your kids, maybe it's the team that you coach, maybe it's your direct report at work, whatever it is, like they're obvious. And then the other category is that there are people you are influencing that you don't even know about. I can tell you countless stories, and again, I'm not tooting my horn here, but I can tell you countless stories of people who came to me 4, 5, 6 months down the road that I never even knew, had never met, and they would tell me about something that was happening in their life, and they knew what was happening in my life, I guess because of social media or whatever it may be, and they would tell me, man, you influenced me through that season, you helped me, and I'm like, bro, I don't even know you, right? So there's 2 categories. Now, granted, live your life in a way that's fruitful, in a way that that influences people, where you're someone that people want to follow, those people that you don't know. But let's go back to point number one and start where we are. Let's look at category one. Who is it that you know that you influence? Influence that. Influence your influence. Start with those relationships that you have where you know you have influence and a voice in their life. 6 years ago, literally to this day, on launch day, we moved to Virginia, and I started a new job, and I was a youth pastor at an incredible church here. And I met a young kid within the first couple weeks of me being there. He was a freshman at the time, and I kid you not, I say it in the most loving way. This kid would not go away, right? Like, if I showed up early, he showed up early. If I stayed late, he stayed late. If there was an event, he was there. Like, he just constantly was clinging to me. Like, literally, if I said something, he soaked it up as a sponge. And again, no pride here. I'm not tooting my own horn here. But I began to realize that I had influence in this kid's life. Hopefully, rightfully so, right? Like, I'm his youth pastor. But I began to understand and shift my perspective to say, man, I really need to take advantage of this. Not for my gain, but for him. I really need to understand it. This kid, there's something about me that draws himself to me, and I need to utilize that. I need to influence that influence. And so I began to invest into him intentionally, mentor him, give him opportunities to grow and lead. And now 6 years later, this kid that wouldn't go away, he still won't go away because he's on my staff. And man, it's incredible to see, to watch this influence that you have in someone's life and to be a part of growing and molding and shaping someone. Now, granted, they may not be on your staff. You may not even have a staff because you don't lead an organization. But what an incredible part of your life to know that you started right where you were because you viewed yourself as a leader. And you began to influence the influence that you have in your life, and you made a difference in someone else's. Like, don't mistake or take for granted or discredit the influence that you have, because you have more than you think you do. And so, your influence, start right where you are. And number three, maybe possibly the most important, stop comparing yourself. Stop comparing yourself. So often we want to look at leadership from this position and title perspective, and we want to say, man, look at him. I'll never be as good a leader as him or her. I'll never reach that level. And what happens is we begin to compare ourselves to that person, and we completely devalue ourselves. And we say, I'll never be that, so therefore I must not be a leader. No, you are a leader. Whether you're leading 2 or 2,000, as I've said already, it doesn't matter. And if you take your 2 and compare it to the 2,000, you're going to find yourself in this spiral, this circle that's not healthy, and it's going to shift your perspective. And you're going to think that you actually don't have influence when you do. You've got to be you, and you've got to stop trying to be somebody else. I've done that so many times, especially in ministry, where I look at someone and say, man, I want what they have. I want to get to the level that they're at. I want to do what they do. I want my church to be that big, and whatever it may be. And what I've found is that I've even jumped into some of those things mistakenly, but I had to do it just because the Lord's like, all right, you want it, go do it. And I realized that it wasn't me, and so it wasn't going to work. It wasn't my wiring. It wasn't my gifting. And so you've got to stop comparing yourself to other people, because here's what's the most important thing about that. Write this down. The moment that you focus on someone else's influence, you miss out on yours. The moment that you focus on someone else's influence, you miss out on yours. You are not wired the same way as someone else. Therefore, you cannot lead from someone else's gift. So stop comparing yourself, because it will steal everything from you. Start where you are. As we recap, start right where you are. And look around and figure out, who is it that I have influence over, and influence that influence. And while you're doing it, don't you dare begin to look around at everybody else and start comparing yourself to other people. You are a leader, the leader that you have been created and designed to be out of the gifting that you have. Doesn't mean that everything is perfect and you're the greatest leader in the world. It means that you have what you need. You've been created a specific way. You need to start where you are, influence your influence, and stop comparing yourself. So I want to give you 2 challenge questions, and we will be done with this episode. The first one is this: identify 2 or 3 people right now that you know you have influence over, and reach out to them, send them a text, give them a call. Hey, can we have coffee? Can we do lunch? And just begin to listen to what's happening in their life and speak life and leadership and influence into theirs. Number 2, and this is a little bit more hard, or more difficult, more challenging. I'm not the smartest one, by the way. So anyways, I just let it all fly. Here we go. Number 2, find and identify those people or areas that you've been in this circle of comparison in, and get out of it. Stop doing it. Find out, who is it I'm comparing myself to that is actually robbing me of what I'm supposed to be doing and the influence that I have. Write them down, whatever you need to do. You need to identify it, and you need to let it go. And so, man, I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. This is so much fun. I find so much joy and energy and life from doing this. I hope it adds value. Again, if it does, it would mean so much if you would share and subscribe. And so, man, jump on over to episode number 2 because it's ready. And then you'll have to wait 2 weeks for episode 3. Man, I appreciate you guys following. Thank you for the support. And again, I'm here for you. I hope this adds value to your life. I hope you have an incredible week.